on this episode of The Match Query.
You saw what they did. Away to Atalanta. I don't even know if there's anything left in that second leg. Maybe Atalanta should
Atalanta should just stay home.
Atalanta
is gone already.
Waste of this thing. But anyway, maybe they will still make some money.
They came in trying to, and all of a sudden, and the fact that the coach, we got Tudor. Yes, goalkeeper is already making a mistake. What do? You allow him continue because you want to kill his confidence. What you do is you remove him 17 minutes into the game. What do you expect that keeper to do? That a lot of them deserve to be in that round because of you had Arsenal cheating their way to a draw against Leverkusen. You have
Wow. So let's get right into it. Welcome to the Match Query. Football narratives move quickly. At the beginning of the season, the conversation was around European football being dominated by the Premier League clubs. 9 English clubs competing across all European club competitions. 6 of them reaching the Champions League round of 16. Sounded like dominance. We spoke about this in one of our previous episodes. You can find the link just above on the top right-hand side corner. But football has a way of surprising you and revealing truths very quickly. This week, today, we will delve into what happened in the second round of the UEFA Champions League. The first leg of the knockouts were played across Europe, and suddenly the tone changed. The story looked different. Not a single one of these Premier League teams in Champions League managed to win their match. Some drew, some lost, some were heavily beaten. And across Europa League and Conference League, we saw similar experiences. What exactly is going on? Is the Premier League still dominating European football? Is this just a minor setback? Or is the world catching up? And, we are now beginning to see the true quality of other teams who are known to have experience, especially in the knockout stages of European club football competitions. And later in the episode, we'll shift our focus from clubs to individuals. Because while English clubs struggled collectively this week, one team in particular has forwards that are firing on all cylinders. The most impressive attacking setup in Europe. And that's Bayern Munich. We'll talk about Harry Kane. We'll talk about Michael Olise. We'll talk about the return of Yamal Musiala, as well as other contenders potentially for the Ballon d'Or, and possibly how the World Cup, which we are expecting and hoping for, would play into and tie in all of this. So let's get right into it. Well, to start off, let's start with context. At the group stage phase of this second round, and this is to you, Bon, English clubs looked incredibly strong. 6 teams advanced to the Champions League second round. More than any other league, they had the best representation of all countries, of all leagues participating in the second round. And many analysts began to suggest, even we did in one of our previous episodes, where we talked about how finances and, how everything tied into the dominance, the seeming dominance we were seeing at the time, and how the Premier League had become effectively the center of European football. But knockouts, it shows you a different flavor from what we've seen. Group stages will reward score depth, financial power, attacking identity. And I think Easy, or maybe you, Bon, had mentioned even then about this. You had hinted, that the league phase, that the fact that you're topping the table or you're doing well in the league phase does not guarantee anything. You talked about...
I hinted that.
And that the favorites, usually don't end up winning the Champions League. Well, the knockouts have revealed something entirely different. Control, game management, tactical patience. Even teams like Bayern Leverkusen are really showing stuff that you'll expect of experienced team in Champions League. When you watch the first leg of the matches this week, did you notice something about tempo, Bon?
Yeah, actually I did. It's like there was a tempo disconnect. It almost felt like the English teams couldn't keep up with the own tempo that they know how to create. It felt like some of these European teams, I will just give like specific examples. Right? We can start with, I don't think there was any team issue around tempo with the Bayer Leverkusen Arsenal game. think it was just a game about, because the way Arsenal have played this season is the same way they actually had that game. And so they're able to like control at very, very minimal phases of the game. Where we said see this tempo disconstruction was for
Yeah.
Atletico Madrid Spurs.
Yeah, and I'm particularly mentioning that because you know what we've always said is that the speed of play in Premier League is one of the things that other clubs in Europe cannot contend with.
Yes.
And that's what I
Yeah.
was hoping you could speak to.
Of course, Spurs in the Premier League, as you rightly mentioned, the English Premier League has this thing about pace, directness, where it's end to end. Where you see lower teams trying to either put up low blocks or big blocks to counter the directness of some of the English Premier League teams. But the reverse was the case. Now, in that Atletico Madrid Spurs game, yes, we'll come to the fact that maybe the personnel were the reasons why there was issues caused. But if you look at that collapse against Atletico Madrid, he actually perfectly actually illustrates it. Now, Spurs try to play the usual way, like, okay, building from the back to negate tempo and everything with it. But Atletico Madrid set up traps. They were beating at Spurs to do what they wanted to do. So in essence, there were pockets of times within the game in which Atletico Madrid were able to set up tempo traps. I would term them tempo traps, where even though Spurs were trying to pass out from the back, there was a massive press. Just one massive surge of press. In fact, I would say one of the things you could see from the European teams that dominated the English teams was a very high degree of press from those teams to ensure that English teams could not just build up the way they would want to build up. Even in games where those teams were able to build up the way they want to build up, there was a negation of that build up to just go extremely long, as you could see in the Real Madrid Man City game. Me and Abba were sinking on that just before the pod. Real Madrid could not come out of their own half in the first 20 minutes. And all it needed was one disruption, a long ball from Courtois, and the game just opened up. You get. So there were various ways in which the other European teams were able to just negate the English teams. In the PSG versus Chelsea game, it was proper end-to-end though, for like 60 minutes. We're going back and forth. The game state was changing around various spaces. But then you can see how personnel changes, proper game state management, just probably we can say naive decisions from one coach in terms of his substitutions costs the other opposition to come into the game. So yes, there was a tempo distrust.
So you've talked about naivety, you've talked about tempo and all of that. And I'm just thinking, we've watched these same clubs, some of these coaches repeatedly over and over in Champions League. In your opinion, do you think Spanish clubs, French clubs, especially with the kind of coaches they have, are actually specialists in managing game tempo and transition, especially in knockout phases like this? What are your thoughts, Bon?
So, that's actually a very good question. Yes, you can say that in the nature of how these other leagues play, like the Italian Serie A, there's a lot around managing game states there. Yet managing the way we are going to play at various phases of the game, our attacking transitions or defensive solidity or setup. It's a thing with the Italian teams, especially the way they play you. Some of them just like to just absorb that pressure and come at you. The same thing with probably some of the Spanish teams as well. One thing I actually also noticed from the English teams is, the English teams, we heavily rely on transitions. You can see that in the Newcastle versus Barcelona game, see the Chelsea versus PSG, even Manchester City versus Real Madrid. Transitions is some of the things with the game. Even Arsenal versus Bayer Leverkusen, there was transitions. We heavily rely on transitions, right? But some of these European teams like PSG, Barcelona, and co, even at a point, some people will look at the Barcelona Newcastle game and think Barcelona are meant to have lost this game. But one thing Barcelona did was they were able to manage Newcastle's transitions. You may not have looked at it that way, but they were managing the game, managing those transitions. You get, especially last week we spoke around how Barcelona struggled away from home. Easy hinted it. You can check out that episode as well too, where they struggled away from home. One thing that Barcelona were able to do was to manage the game states. They managed and curtailed the amount of dangerous transitions that Newcastle give. Even though you can actually also say Newcastle were not even clinically enough, because they had some very, very insane chances. We can reference one one guy called Elanga. Elanga was just, I don't know, it was just a lot. When you then look at, that is now in terms of transitions and the game state. What I actually also noticed was I'm looking for the word to actually describe it, the inefficiency in the way the English teams set up their defensive structure, especially their rest defense. It was crumbling like flies. Like it was easy for some of the European teams to bypass because, of course, if you are transiting, like you are going on transitions, you are going to leave a rest defense structure able to curtail those offensive transitions from the attacking team, so you can really come back into defensive structure. And I'll use 2 games. It happened against Chelsea. Poorest defense structure, very poorest defense structure. Where sometimes it's solely Fofana that is left to curtail the attacking force of Dembele and Bakola. You could actually also see it in the Man City Real Madrid game, where O'Reilly and Diaz and Pusano sometimes were left because the defensive solidity was not there. Right? It's like both of them just crumbled, forgot how to actually defend balls. And it's because of the way those opposites like Real Madrid, PSG, and even Barcelona were able to manage game state. So while the English teams are kings of transitions, fast pace and every single team, you see that in the knockout stage, and about to reference this, and that's why now I'm never using dominance again. Let's just spin that one. Because Abba made a very important point that you cannot be dominant if you don't show forth in these critical stages. So maybe English teams have just been structurally competitive. Yeah. But now that we are getting to the thick of the matter, we are seeing the way the other leagues, Spanish teams, the French teams now, that are coached by a Spanish guy. Mind you, that's actually for me now is a critical factor. Enrique coaches is a Spanish guy. He is the way he has set up his team over here. So you now even see that PSG are even imbibing some Spanish and Italian because he has coached at AS Roma, he has coached at Barcelona. And he has taken those learnings into a PSG team. We have structured them to play almost similar way. And he's using that in the French league where he's able to set up PSG in the Champions League. And we are seeing that pay floor. So to be fair, English is actually fair in my hand. That's all I can say.
That's interesting. And easy to come to you. I'm sorry, I have to say this. I've tried to avoid it. I hoped I would, but I couldn't. It's about the disaster that anytime do you know I actually went to check for Kinski Looney. I think his name is this Antonin Kinski.
Antonin Kinski.
So I went to check if he's left or right footed. It looks like he's right footed naturally. I'm not sure of this. I've not verified, but from what I could immediately see, it looked like he's a right footed guy, but he's a bit assured on his left foot, maybe to some extent. But what then happened was, because that pitch was wet, all the balls that led to him slipping, they came from his left. But anyway, we will get into more of that. I guess the question too easy is, you see, the Premier League, we've said in terms of media, we all know that they dominate football coverage. They have the largest broadcast deals. They command a wide reach, global attention, But are we being deceived by all of this? Because, sometimes visibility can just create perception that you just think, because of the media dominance, that also then translates to dominance in performance.
You think that you are doing well.
Yes. And performance, perception can, sort of create, shape narratives. So easy to you. If we step away from the media narrative and simply look at, the European knockout results earlier this week, can we still confidently say the Premier League is clearly the strongest league in the world? And this is a question that has continued to generate a lot of debates. Is the Premier League still the strongest league? Are they the most entertaining league rather than the most efficient in Europe? Over to you, Easy.
Okay, so you said strongest league. So a lot of times I try to stay clear of that debate because, like I said, it's always
stay clear,
one-sided.
Stay clear, if you fall into this trap.
So the thing about it is, I don't think it's a matter of perception, right? So yes, the English teams have not done, especially with the first legs, they have not shown that, a lot of them deserve to be in that round because of, you had Arsenal cheating their way to a draw against Leverkusen. You have
Wow.
Yes, now because there's no way that is a penalty. Is that
we have
was not supposed to be, like I said,
we have a very good base of Arsenal listeners that will be very interested for you to explain this cheating away to a draw that he just said.
No, so with the Bayer Leverkusen game. So let me start from there. The Bayer Leverkusen Arsenal game, right? So I don't think it's something I've complained of also. This is an Arsenal. Their football is underwhelming. They are risk adverse. They don't take risk. there are a lot of times where Eze could have done something, but probably because of the tactical instructions from Arteta, would rather pick a pass rather than drive through. So a lot of times it looks like they're not taking risks. They just want to rely on the stability of their defense and find a way to probably ease out a win or make sure that, according to Rice, as far as you don't lose, they are fine, right? So apparently it looks like that's what the coach is telling them. So they are playing very safe, right? So one thing with that is you might be able to rely on that in the Premier League and stuff like that. But in the Champions League, there's going to be issues, especially in the later stages of the competition, and it's starting to tell right now that Arsenal might not be there. Yes, they are shouting, we are going to the Emirates and stuff like that. Yes, because they will expect the Emirates crowd to do some certain things, and Leverkusen would obviously line up in the same low block they did against them in the first leg. So they're hoping that one or two decisions go their way and they're able to ease out another victory, right? But I have said it before, their performance is very unconvincing. It's not when they are favorites because it seems like they are in every competition and they find a way to get results. But I don't think they are the best team in Europe currently. So there's that bit.
Did you notice
For Newcastle? Okay, Ojo, you're about to say something.
during the Newcastle game, as well as across all games as well, that, and I'm saying this because you mentioned Arsenal, and we've talked about this before, about set pieces in one of our previous episodes. Did you notice that every time they tried to play a corner and someone tried to pull or harangue another player, the referee blew foul
Yes.
against the attacking team?
Yes, now. Yes.
I just wanted to note that. You can continue.
So I noticed, like I said, it's that bit is the Premier League that is very lenient with that bit. Maybe the rumors of them trying to have another name on the trophy might be true, but they're just rumors. Because, like I said, I think by the end of this season, those rules will be revisited again and we might have a cleaner bit of it when they have given who they want to give the title to. So yeah, so the Newcastle Barcelona game, Barcelona were very lucky. So while it ended 1-1, that was not a true tale of what happened. Barcelona were lucky to have left England with 1 point. If Eddie Howe had attackers that had a brain, that tie should have been over. It would have been like the Atletico Madrid Barcelona game in the Copa del Rey, where Atletico had won. There was a mountain to climb in the second leg, even though they would always say Barcelona. I think I mentioned in the last episode that Barcelona tend to do well at home, and away, it's like the performance is directly opposite. People say, so you can't say it's a personal effort. You can't say it's maybe the players. A lot of times it's the whole team. Yeah, so it just feels like away they don't dominate as much as they do. It just looks like they just came to they take away games like a means to okay, is a let's manage this game and we'll go home and we subdue you, right? Again, I think later stages of the competition when they face stronger opponents or opponents with attackers that have brains, they would actually pay for that bit. Especially maybe let's say for example, maybe they go to in the semi-final, let's say they get to the semi-final stage and they play an Arsenal, for example. And Arsenal being Champions League rules says since they finished top, first leg is going to be at Barcelona's home. So that home away advantage they're trying to look for might not necessarily favor them at that point in time. So they will need to learn how to play away games the same way they play home games. So in that game, I don't think the English. I think, like I said, if Newcastle had spent that Isaac money properly, they would have been able to, because like they have, for me, that money, it feels like they just wasted it. And a lot of times it happens in the Premier League where they sell a marquee player and all of a sudden they get that and they don't know what to do with that funds. I think one time Tottenham used to buy 11 bonds. Same thing with.
I guess my question is because from what I can, my perception from what you're saying is that the Isaac money was not efficiently used.
It wasn't efficiently used. It wasn't efficiently used.
It's actually been a problem with the English Premier League.
Votemade is a failure already.
No, I'm not saying it's a failure. So I feel it was overpriced. And it's because of how late they left it to do this business. So if they had started this business way early, they probably would have gotten Votemade. I'm not saying Votemade is a waste. I'm just saying for the amount they got him for, I don't think his value is up to that point yet. Okay. Right? So I'm not saying he's a waste. He's a very fine player.
And it's interesting that you are speaking about, we are talking about player pricing and all of that. Last summer alone, the Premier League clubs spent a total of around £3.1 billion just in the summer alone. And,
get trashed in the
I'd said that
round.
I'd said that, it's possible that, we might be thinking because
$1 billion
the media narrative and everything, maybe all the things we are hearing about the money they are spending, the media coverage, all the podcast, all the previous players coming in, maybe that is shaping how we think of English football. Do you think, Easy, that the financial power sometimes masks tactical weakness of the Premier League? And I'm going to give an example. For example, in the case of Newcastle, a much more experienced coach might have been able to manage that team better, manage that game better in such a way that they will have been able to get 3 points from that first leg. Do you think, how much English Premier League clubs are spending is masking the tactical weakness
Ojo,
generally across in Europe?
Ojo, before Easy proceeds to answer this your question, he just said a much more experienced coach will manage that Newcastle this thing better. I don't think any coach is going to manage what Elanga's brain decision making was in that game. I don't know. I don't think anything will gonna change that.
So what I was speaking to was that at 1-0, few minutes to the end of the game, would you have continued attacking Barcelona or just managed the game as an experienced coach? Well, that's by the way. I'm saying, are all these deficits being masked by how much Premier League clubs are spending? Is that shaping how we perceive them? The power, the dominance that we attribute to them, is it masking tactical weaknesses? Look at Chelsea, for example. Same thing. Tottenham, as poor as they are, they spent a lot. Do you think there is some tactical weakness being masked? Is there something about the quality of players as well that is being masked by player pricing? How much is being spent?
Okay. So I don't think it's a tactical, is masking a tactical bit, right? So what I feel is doing is they are getting players that are overpriced. For example, you brought up a very good reason. You brought a very good example. You brought the Chelsea game, right? So in terms of tactics, I think Rosen had PSG done. Like the plan was working. Like at any point in time, it felt like, oh, this is bit. But I feel Chelsea lost that game for two reasons. The quality of depth, right? The quality of depth was the reason that they lost that game. Because if they had a bet, so yes, while I blame Rosiner for starting Jorgensen over Sanchez, right? Sanchez would have done better in that game, but with how he wanted to play, he will have not been able to. Yes, I understand that, but some of those goals were considered due to, like I said, quality of depth, because Jorgensen is a quality. So if they had the better keeper, they had someone that could do that. Why they might have gotten Jorgensen for a certain amount of fee? Yes, what the financial bit is doing is giving them the ability to buy a lot of overpriced players. For example, you are buying players that, because tell me why Delap is in Chelsea, for God's sake. You have players that, because at some point, I think during the game, if you could tell, I was begging, please don't bring in these words, please don't make these subs, and he made it, and it looked like from there on the game just went away. So like I said, Chelsea could have managed that game better, because at some point, see PSG, for example, PSG had Kivara on the bench, right? They had a class player like Kivara on the bench. So at 60, 70 minutes, they needed to change it, and they brought in quality. What Chelsea brought in a very expensive Beth. Is what they brought into the match to continue. And at that point, if you note, it was at the point they made those subs that it became, the gap just widened. It just looked like, Chelsea became more stupid. So I don't think I'm trying to be, because trust me, I'm still very annoyed with that game. So I'm trying to be as calm as possible. But the thing about it is, I feel so I don't think it's a tactical bit, because you could say the same for Real Madrid versus City. I think Pep did what Pep normally do. He overthinks the game. And the high block they were playing, and the idea that they did not man mark was the reason. It was what Real Madrid played to their advantage, because if O'Reilly was man marking Valverde when Courtois threw that long pass, that gap he had wouldn't have happened. A lot of their goals were due to like a tactic. Like for Real Madrid, so you can say yes, Real Madrid found loopholes in the way Pep tried to set up, and they played it to the T with considered possession to dig them and allow them. Because a lot of times, what Pep had in that game was they just had possession, they just had wasteless. Is what I was telling Bon during the week, that while I liked Chelsea's play, right, because every pass looked like there was going to be a result, right? It looked like they were finding answers to. There was a tailored solution. They were going somewhere. A lot of the passing, a lot of the possession Man City had could not justify that because it just looked like, oh, they were fruitless. They were just possession for possession's sake, which is one of the reasons why Ball I've had this conversation for. Sometimes having a lot of possession can be very useless because in the end you don't get the results.
The way I dislike that statistic these days, possession. Hmm.
So that's the thing. So with other English teams, Tottenham was the massive fail because from the beginning it looked like, oh, they didn't even know what they wanted to do. They came in trying to, and all of a sudden, and the fact that the coach, we got Tudor, yes, goalkeeper's already making a mistake. What do? You allow him continue because you want to kill his confidence. What you do is you remove him 17 minutes into the game. What do you expect that keeper to do? It's just like what they expect that, oh, I brought in another keeper. To me, that was a very reactionary bit of it. And I feel he has damaged the confidence of Kinski because the idea of there are times in previous games where you have teams that make mistakes and the coach don't remove them immediately. What they do is, oh, they keep them. So, oh, I can tell, oh, I believe in you. And if he had been kept on, there's a high chance, oh, they'd have considered more goals. But at least you know that, oh, this is a learning curve for this goalkeeper. You 17 minutes and you threw him out of, and it didn't even make things worse because after then they still pumped you. So it wasn't like a keeper position. It's like they didn't know. Tudor didn't know what to play in that match.
Well,
I did this laughter in.
I agree with some of the things that you said, but again, a goalkeeper conceding.
So I don't think it's. So I don't think it's a okay.
3 goals in that nature at that point. It's only would take a lot of will for a coach to continue playing that keeper in that game. And it wasn't only the keeper. I think some of these Tottenham players.
Yes, it wasn't only the keeper.
Signifying to the bench that they should remove the keeper. Something about maybe his confidence was already deep by then.
But the first three goals, 2 was Kinski. The second goal was Van de Ven. It was Van de Ven that slipped for the second goal. There's nothing you could have done there.
And even Van de Ven was lucky in that game. There was one, I'm not sure again, but I think there was one part of the play I watched that he should have received a red card. But again, that's talk for another day. Well,
like I said, it's not a tactical bit. So what it does is what the money is doing is hyping the league, and because of the hype the league is having, they are buying a lot of average bonds for overpriced. So yeah.
So instead, what you are saying is that there's a gap in quality that is being masked by the
true
pricing. Well, that brings us to Abba, and this is quite brutal. See, that's how I think, this might be a brutal, but it's honest assessment of what's going on. European knockout football is a different flavor. It has a specific particular culture. Everybody knows that it's serious business from there on.
Yeah.
Right? Spanish clubs would usually focus on tactical patience. They will whine you out. They will be patient. That's what we saw in Real Madrid against Man City. German teams, those ones, they don't hear go. Once you go like this, they are going. They don't respect you. Once they start scoring, they don't stop. It's structure and intensity over and over, and they will continue doing it repeatedly. We saw what they did. Away to Atalanta. I don't even know if there's anything left in that second leg. Maybe Atalanta should just say
Atalanta is gone. That is gone already.
Waste of this thing. But anyway, maybe they will still make some money. This is what we've seen this week. Does it suggest that Premier League teams sometimes just lack football IQ, especially in the knockout stages? This is not anything about talent, not about money. We've established that the financial dominance is already there. But the tiny details in games, because it's these same players that we are watching week in, week out. Semenyo, we can't say he's low quality. You get? We can't.
Yes.
Bar maybe Newcastle, where we know that, okay, this is one of their first few rodeos. They didn't have Anthony Gordon, whom we had spoken of about how he was doing really well. They didn't have him for most parts of the game. But, these small, tiny details, being able to control games, manage moments, killing matches off when necessary. Do you think the Premier League teams lack football IQ in these stages? What are your thoughts about?
Yeah, I don't think it's a lack of IQ. It's kind of like a branding, a philosophy, a mindset that they've put forth about English football. The marketing hasn't helped, and the ideology of, sometimes you see a player run and then you see the media pundits, they begin to hail that he can run. Yeah, so I'm going to try to build my point around facts, like serious fast. One of the first things I think I want to talk about is, although it feels like an uncomfortable truth in English football, I think the Premier League is built on intensity. We all know how intense the league is. There's a very high level of intensity in the Premier League. But the problem is the Champions League is won. Games are won in the Champions League through rhythm. And the team, what we saw this week are teams who decided that we're going to manage the rhythm of the game. So in one game where you are going back and forth, like in PSG versus Chelsea, in different moments of the game, this guy goes high, this guy goes, like the tempo was changing. They managed the rhythm. And especially like when Chelsea were on the high, they tried to manage it. Chelsea created chances. The chances were there, but they managed the rhythm. That's what we saw across all the games, managing rhythm. Arsenal tried to slow it down, tried to use their constant, taking so many seconds or minutes to take a corner kick or any dead ball, trying to make them uncomfortable. And Bayer Leverkusen were just like, we're fine. Well, no problem. You want to slow it down? Let's slow it down. You want to go fast? Let's go fast, whichever one. Why? All these teams decided that they were going to control the rhythm of the game. You want to go fast, we'll just control how fast you can go, manage how fast you can go. So, and a part of these things can be seen even in the statistics, right? So when we look at the statistics, for example, when we talk about game control, in 3 of the 5 losses suffered by English teams this week, the Premier League teams actually had more possession, right? They averaged 58% possession. But here's the funny thing.
You don't invite Bono.
Listen, they had more possession, 58% on average, not one game, across games, yet they conceded more big chances. Do you see that? That's managing the rhythm.
No,
Keep the ball if you want to keep it. Hold it if you want to, but we will manage what you can do with it. We'll manage your efficiency, right? And these other teams created big chances with less of the ball. And nothing was how these teams managed momentum, right? We saw a recurring theme of 5-minute collapse in from the English teams, right? Conceding 2 or more goals within a 10-minute window in 4 different matches, 4 different games. They conceded 2 or more goals within 10 minutes. Chelsea, Manchester City, Tottenham Hotspur. That tells you something. Man City were dominating. Manchester City were dominating possession. Chelsea at a point in time thought it was 2-2, 77 minutes. Yet, either collapse at the beginning of the game for Tottenham Hotspur, collapse middle of the half from Manchester City, collapse by Chelsea at the end of the game. It was just everywhere. So we see that these teams manage those momentums. They manage those periods. They manage those times where there was just like a lack of emotional or tactical management. They just like picked on it. Manage their momentum very well. So this is the problem. I think this, for me, is the biggest problem we have in the Premier League. And somehow they've marketed it to make it look like that's what makes the Premier League glorious. If you lose the ball in the Premier League, you sprint, you run like mad, and people praise you for, oh, look at the recovery. Look at how many meters he ran. Oh, how many yards and everything. When you go to other clubs in Europe, when you lose the ball against teams like, let's even talk about Atletico Madrid. When you lose the ball, they don't just try to immediately counter-attack. Not in everything. Sometimes they will, in terms of managing, the game. Other times, what they do is they just hide the ball from you for a couple of minutes. They play it in such a way that they disrupt your tempo. They disrupt all your running around like a headless chicken. They just disrupt all those things you do, so that when one player is ready to sprint, the other player may not necessarily be at that wavelength. And they do those things. We saw Bayer Leverkusen do it very well against Arsenal. You get your dead ball, and then they try to disrupt it so that the person taking it is just maybe a fraction faster than those expecting it, or those expecting the move a fraction earlier than the person. So that's like severe management that we don't even look about. So they just try to kill your momentum, right? And unfortunately, we are seeing a generation of English-based players who are world-class athletes, but tactical tourists when they go to Europe.
That's deep.
That is why they just like, it looks like they glided through the league phase of the Champions League, because they played some teams that, being world-class athletes, allowed them to gain points from being there. Now you are meeting the baba of those who came out of the league, and they are telling you, Oga, is it wrong? No problem. It's not a big deal, right? You can win a 100-meter dash, but you don't know how to win a chess match. That's what we saw this week, right? the chess game, the tactical nuances. We saw how Barcelona clawed their way back into the fixture. Arsenal narrowly getting a draw. And that's the difference, right? People are managing the English teams differently according to all their strengths. And this week proved something, that while money buys you the best seats at the table, it doesn't necessarily buy you the know-how to finish the meal. And we saw a lot of teams wipe the table clean with the English teams.
Abba is just giving us solid lines.
I see a very, very apt world-class
That's how
athletes,
I feel.
tactical choristers. That is what about them,
Honestly,
and it's true.
Yes,
We just have to run.
this week was like, we just got, I won't say like, it was like a wake up to the English teams. Having 9 teams anywhere in Europe. I mean, only one team out of the 9 won in Europe across all the competitions. 1 win.
Aston Villa.
0% win rate in the Champions League. It tells you all you need to know.
Also need to another
And
thing
this
you
is
also
the
need to
thing.
put in
This
new
is the thing.
perspectives is the fact that a lot of the teams were away in the first. A lot of those English teams were away in the first. So in the returning legs next week might bring a different flavor to it. For example, like I always say, Liverpool had a very difficult fixture against Galatasaray. Galatasaray is not. I think they have gone there twice. They went there in the group stage and lost. They still went there and lost 1-0. Galatasaray is not a very good ground. So I feel a lot of times, if you notice, I didn't even bring Liverpool's case because I feel Liverpool were just wasteful with chances. If not, they could have done something in that game. So
Yeah.
I feel
What we are talking about is not just going away to struggle. It's the fact of how
They've
they
struggled.
struggle. I don't know if you understand.
Actually created a very huge divide to actually
It's
claw
the
back,
how that
because
is the issue.
some of those teams now cannot claw back that deficit. Or we are praying for miracle now. For example, now, would you beat your chest to say that? Will you beat your chest to say that
Don't mention the
Man
club.
City
Don't
beats
mention it.
calm down now, that Man City will beat Real Madrid 4-0 without getting any reply? Or that Chelsea Chelsea
Come
will
on, you have
beat
to mention them.
Chelsea will
No,
beat
so-
PSG
The
4-0
problem
without
is
PSG
just
scoring.
I think
It's
what
hard.
I want to say is the problem is for where we put English teams and what we saw this week. It means between now and Tuesday, Wednesday next week, it's a huge wake-up call. Coaches have to do something different to get results.
And it's interesting
And-
that you've mentioned coaches, now, because, even when we were discussing outside of this episode, one of the things I said is I place a lot of value on coaches that can, in the middle of a game, change a game
Mhm.
with whatever they have, with whatever personnel they have. It's the reason, the club I'm supporting now, Juve, no matter how bad things are now, I still have a bit of hope in Spalletti. He's that kind of coach that can tweak and change things. Allegri was like that as well. The current crop of coaches, managers in English Premier League, there is a defining theme across board. And you can see that in this first leg. Once things start going wrong, can they tweak a game in such a way that they manage and come out with a result?
I
Can
think
they
that's the
manage
problem.
movement?
That's the problem is that these coaches see football in one way.
One
And I think
direction.
that's a problem. When you see the coaches from Spain, Germany, Italy, even though Italy is not doing so well, which I think is a footballing problem as a whole, not coaching problem, is
It's
that
a systemic problem with Italy. It's
they are
systemic
very
football problem.
conscious of playing teams that are not from their nation. They understand that there is a difference to adapt to teams that don't come from their league. And you see that, forget that Newcastle outplayed Barcelona. Let's say that. But Barcelona were very, very conscious of the fact that they were not playing in La Liga team. We always talk about their high line. It was much more conservative against Newcastle. They recognized, Hansi Flick recognized that even though we go high, we must be ready to recover. We must expect balls in behind. Yes, Elanga got those balls a couple of times in behind because of his pace. But like I said, an athlete without precision, there are so many phrases rumbling through my head that might sound disrespectful
and
for me to say it.
running
But
100
how
meter
do you
races.
get in behind the defense? And all you have to do is connect with one of your teammates, and you fail again and again and again and again and again.
I mean, there was a clear chance he got one-on-one and he could only shoot at the keeper.
And you can see
Yeah,
the
as
moment
though he
Gordon,
was
the
over.
moment Gordon
Yeah.
and Murphy came in, game
It
the game
change.
change. And that's the thing. So we are getting to the point where it's now a mix of deep in quality, difference in quality, gap in quality in personnel, and
Mhm.
also a bit of, experience, naivety, in some of the games. And I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be any miracle in the second leg. But I'm just going to ask a quick question round, one fixture each. What do you think is going to happen in second leg? Just prediction. Second leg, Atletico Madrid, Tottenham versus Atletico Madrid. What do you think?
See, the second leg is at Wanda Metropolitan. But Tottenham, no.
Yeah,
They've played.
we are
Was
going
Tottenham at
to
home?
this. They
Okay,
were
we
away.
are.
Tottenham were
They
away.
were away. Okay, so
Mhm.
against Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. See,
Just a 3-goal
Tottenham,
difference.
it is just a 3-goal difference. See the thing here. The problem I have with the Spurs Atletico Madrid fixture is that Spurs may go and play that game with no players. They have very severe lack of depth. Severe lack of depth, number one.
I mean,
Number
with
two
what
is
is
that
going on there now, it is possible that they might even have a new coach by then.
they may even have a caretaker coach. You get.
Exactly.
So you can see that organizational disruption is affecting the team. Also,
Mhm.
Spurs is a team with players that are severely low in confidence. Severely. It's not like there's low. This is severe low in confidence.
What do you think? What do you think the scoreline might be? Just
I know the scoreline may not be moderate. That's all I will tell you. It will not be a moderate scoreline.
are you saying they are going to win heavily?
They are going to lose. I don't think they are going to win.
I really think that game would depend heavily on what Simone wants. If Simone wants to go and just be cautious, the game might end up in a draw. If he
Well,
goes,
that's actually another
like,
point.
just depends. And we know Simone is one of those kind of coaches. He's the kind of coach that makes up his mind before the ball is kicked. And he just goes there and it's like, guys, let's just try to get over the line. We're already leading, and that kind of a thing. If he goes there saying we can get a win, my brother, it might be bloody. They can get another
Again.
3-1, 4-1 victory. So it
It's
depends on
football.
Simone.
Anything can happen. We can have a remontada.
My brother, Tottenham
that
have
game.
13 to 14 players out as we speak for this weekend's fixture. At least 10 of them will not return by Tuesday or Wednesday.
Well, again, it's football. Anything can happen. Mr. Abba, to you, what's going to happen Arsenal second leg? Arsenal versus Bayern Munich. I mean, Bayern Leverkusen. Arsenal will be at
Leverkusen.
home.
I think that's one game I don't want to predict. I think Arsenal will narrowly win that fixture, but it's going to be very, very difficult. I really think that Arsenal would win that game on the fact that we've seen them switch it up from poor display to emphatic displays this season. We've seen them do that when it feels like something is at risk. However, here is the potential issue. Arsenal will play this weekend trying their best to keep up with Man City, who were embarrassed by Real Madrid. The question is, if Manchester City decides they want to pick themselves up in the game this weekend, there is a psychological play it can have on Arsenal thinking, we also need to pick up points in the Premier League to keep up. And I think that's why they try to really conserve their energy in the first leg.
And they're playing Everton.
And they're playing Everton. So if you go all out,
do you think Bayer Leverkusen can drag them to penalties?
That's where I was heading to with this discussion. If they go all out against Everton, there is a potential extra time game expected in midweek. However, the key to that game will be in the first half. I emphatically believe Arsenal wins it in the first half, because that's what makes total sense right now, to win games in the first half for them so that you can conserve your energy in the second half. I expect them to come out gun blazing against Everton this weekend. I expect them to also come out gun blazing against Leverkusen in midweek. And then both second halves, I expect them to turn to their normal tactics of kick the ball out, walk around, make all kinds of delays to slow the game down. That's what I expect. So I think Arsenal wins against Bayer Leverkusen by 2-1.
And just to add, Ojo, one of the things that I think affected Bayer Leverkusen, which I think I told you, Bayer Leverkusen have they don't have good quality in attack. So I feel it's going to actually also affect them to play. They don't really have so much quality in attack.
But who is that? Who is that their striker? That guy can press.
No, the guy can press. I won't lie. That guy but the quality in conversion, it was not really there. But his press was top. Yeah. And he's just 19 or so, or 18. Very young guy, but Up press.
Yeah, and that brings us to you, Easy. You would think I'm going to ask you the question on the obvious one, but no, I'm going to bring it close to home. What do you think is going to happen? What are your predictions for Manchester City at home versus Real Madrid? I was going to ask
I was expecting.
I'm not going to ask you about Chelsea. No, I'm
No,
not going to ask
I
you.
wasn't very expecting the Chelsea
I
one
think it's good
because
for him to talk about City.
so I feel
When your first
I
lover and your
feel,
second one own took a pity.
it's one of those weekends. We'll bounce back. So I feel City win the game. I don't think they'll qualify. I think a 3-0 deficit right now might be a very taxing for this version of Pep that I can understand. So but yeah, I feel I feel it's going to be let's say a 2-1 Man City win.
Okay. Well, and that's where the conversation becomes really interesting because whilst English clubs struggled collectively in Europe this week, individual players across Europe really showed extraordinary performances, like Valverde
Olise.
against, and then Olise, massive performance, and then we saw Musiala also turn up, towards it was a game for the taking anyway. And that was a team that did not even play Harry Kane, who is their highest quality along their forward line. Across their forward line. Michael Olise is producing some of the highest chance creation numbers in Europe. And yet, I know it's too early, but when we look at the Ballon d'Or conversation, those performances they are not dominating the narrative. People tend to remember Haaland, dear Ninja Turtle, Kylian Mbappe, and other players like that, Lamine Yamal. Those are the people that people are tending to shape the narrative around when it comes to Ballon d'Or conversations. I just want us to explore this. We are going to start with you again. The numbers. Let's start with the data. Harry Kane is approaching 30 goals this season already, as we are. And the season is not even
approaching. He's already on 45 goals.
45 goals. No, that's across all competitions.
He has 30 goals in the Bundesliga already. He's not approaching. He's already there.
And look at Michael Olise's numbers. Goals and assists. My God. So these guys are turning up extremely highly expected numbers. And when analysts look at modern forwards, I don't know what's going on. Maybe because the media space is dominated by the English media. But, the things we usually want to look at are expected goals, expected assists, chance creations, total goal involvement. And if you were to go by these metrics alone, Bayern forwards are not joking. They are sizzling hot this season. So when you compare all this to all these other names that we've mentioned, Kylian Mbappe, Haaland, Vinicius, Lamine Yamal, Rafinha, what do these numbers actually tell us upon? Are the attackers' performances, are they deserving of the attention that we expect them to have in this sort of conversation? Or is this just something colored by the league they are playing in and the dominance of the media space by the English media? What exactly is going on?
Okay, so in a very short and sweet way to just bring it out, there is not a much media attention that you will generate from Germany when you compare to La Liga and even the Liga, French League, and even the English Premier League. But the numbers give a very clear picture. Those guys are amongst the hottest forwards in Europe this season. Michael Olise already has about, I think when we checked, when the numbers came out, had about 41 goal and assist contributions across board. I think he has a lot of assists. He has scored a lot of goals. His expected assists is one of the highest in Europe presently. Let's not even go to Harry Kane.
15 assists.
23 goals, 15 assists. That's about 38 goal involvements.
15 goals.
As 38 goal
across all
involvements.
Competitions.
Across all competitions.
Across all competitions, Olise has 26 assists. You didn't add the DFB poker. He has a total of about 26 assists. 18 in the Bundesliga, 6 in the Champions League, and then 2 in DFB poker. So that brings
if you add the 26 assists to, I think if you look at all competitions, he has about maybe 16 or 17 goals.
In all competitions, he has a total of 15 goals. 10 in the
18 goals.
Bundesliga, 3 in the Champions League, and 2 in the DFB Pokal.
So that is 41 goal involvement in
Yeah.
one season. And I think if you look at that, it's highest in his career. The highest in his career. It's not even the fact
He is
that
on
he has
course to break the record
Messi's
assist
record.
in the Bundesliga, which is at 22. No, Bundesliga assist record is 22. He's already at 18. So
He's
he's
at
4
18.
away from breaking it.
And I have a lot of games to actually go. The thing is this, I'm going to speak around the dynamics of Olise's play. What I've seen differently in Bayern Munich that I probably was not seen in Crystal Palace. Olise is a right winger, we all know this. But when you look at some certain numbers, you can then see that Olise has morphed. He has morphed his style of play. If you check Olise's numbers around his final third entries, the true balls he actually gives, you find out that Olise this season, and in fact under company, because we've seen it from last season, Olise now is a right half space demon. He knows how to operate within the right half space effectively better than he ever did at Crystal Palace. For me, it's why you can see the quality in the assist he actually gives. He has a very high expected assist, which means that it is expected that every time he gives an assist, his forwards are actually going to actually convert it. And when you have forwards like Gnabry, Harry Kane, and Luis Diaz, of course, you can see why those conversions are actually, with that kind of performance, you are expecting him to be in those conversations. But it apparently isn't in those conversations. And it all boils down to what you actually mentioned, the media coverage disparity. Nobody is saying, oh, it has to be in the Ballon d'Or conversations. But from the kind of numbers he's actually currently putting up, it should be there. It should be there. Harry Kane is definitely there. Because having almost, I think he has 50 goal involvements this season already. 45 goals and 5 assists. That is insane numbers to be putting up. 30 goals in the Bundesliga. Golden Boots already. So I don't think anybody is coming close to that. But here's now my thinking. Now, we're in a World Cup here. The World Cup here actually brings its own kind of coverage to say it is whoever performs the World Cup that may actually pinch the Ballon d'Or. But it's not really been that case if you look at historically, like from 2002 till now, right? Especially, no, let's say from 2022 till now, especially when France football changed the years they were using to consider giving the Ballon d'Or. So, Olise is playing for France, a favorite for the World Cup, because they're actually a favorite for the World Cup. And Harry Kane is playing for England, a favorite for the World Cup as well. We don't know if they'll win, but they're favorites to make the later stages of the competition. So that actually would bring another flavor. Probably would touch base on it again in this particular segment. But the short and simple answer is, are both of them deserving with the numbers to be in the Ballon d'Or conversation? Yes.
So I just want to add something that we might like to know. The Olise to Kane connection has been the most feared passing lane in Europe, right? And that is because out of Olise's 26 total assists this season, 18 have been specifically for Harry Kane. So if we want to put that in perspective, nearly 70% of Olise's assists ends with a Kane goal. This speaks also to the quality of Harry Kane. Imagine putting away 70% of one teammate's assist. 70. And that means roughly 40% of Kane's 45 total goals have been served up directly by Michael Olise.
And by Michael Olise.
Right? So that's a phenomenal partnership. Like a phenomenal partnership.
Reminds me of Harry Kane and Son. Towards the later stages of both their career.
Yeah.
So the same thing. I think in the issue of Tottenham, they have the highest, if you check the connection between Harry Kane and Son total in their career, in goal involvement between two teammates. I think they should be there. I'll go and check that out.
You remember the various partnerships from the previous years. I think there was Suarez and was it Suarez and Sterling or Suarez and Sturridge? I don't forget.
I think there was even the Suarez and Messi during the MSN era.
But there was MSN as well. There was BBC.
There was MSN in Barcelona. There was BBC.
There was Andy Cole and I've forgotten the name of this other guy.
There was even the Ozil to Ronaldo one. When Ozil was still there.
Ozil, Ronaldo, and Benzema.
Massive.
Yeah.
Before they sold him off to Arsenal. And that brings us to what easy. We've talked about data. We've talked about numbers. But ultimately, when it comes to Ballon d'Or conversations, do you think Ballon d'Or rewards these numbers? Do you think he ultimately rewards the footballer or the most compelling stories of the year? That's my question to you, Easy. And that's because, on one hand, we have statistics. On the other hand, we have narratives and storytelling. Players can decide to dominate numbers all season, but sometimes Ballon d'Or ends up being decided by moments. I mean, we've seen situations where players had fantastic seasons and they will come up with a criteria and say, what's that criteria that borders on not being
Fair
involved
play.
in? See, what?
Fair
Fair
play.
play.
Fair play.
Yeah, and things like that can be even shaped by things like trophies, iconic goals, defining matches. You could have racked up all numbers in the season and you didn't win any trophy, and that just dulls everything. So, is this a game of just numbers? Do you think he ultimately just rewards the best footballer or the most compelling football story of the year?
Okay, so I think it's a combination of three. It's a combination of all of them, right? Personally, I think it's a combination of all of them. Because for you to have the numbers, it means your numbers have to translate to you being successful. And you being successful means you have the trophies to show for it. While the third bit of it is the compelling story. Oh, okay, so this person wasn't supposed to do this, and because of that, oh, they're doing this now. Yes, let's give this person. For example, you can talk about the compelling story with the 2022 World Cup, where it looked like, oh, Messi's first World Cup, and because of that, that tilted that story. It tilted the vote to the Messi's perspective. You can talk about how, like, I'm sorry to the fans that would find this very controversial. I think last season I had mentioned it that the PR Yama got the second position. I feel Olise could have matched him numbers for numbers. But because Olise is not the flashy player, Olise is not the one that he's doing the whole night. Everybody's hey, everybody's happy and everybody's shouting and all that. It makes it easy for you to say, oh, Yama is like numbers. I actually had a conversation with someone after the end of last season, and I brought out every single metrics, and you could see that metrics or metrics, Olise could match Yamal. So the idea that Yamal is 18 and all of that can be playing into the fact that we are seeing something we normally see in a 24-year-old in an 18-year-old. Hence the compelling story of why you might want to make him the world best. The people feel he's the world best player at this point in time. So like I said, it's a combination of three of them. Do I feel it's wrong? No, I don't think so. I just think a lot of times we should, because it was let's look at the Salah incident now. Salah had the numbers last season, but there were no trophies, no compelling story. So because of that, he was down in the list for this year now. But the thing about that is, so I think it's a combination of the three of them. For you to win the Ballon d'Or, you have to have the stats, you have to have the numbers. You also have to translate into the trophies won for the year. And a lot of times, you can have the spice, the Maggi and the salt, the compelling story. For example, the Dembele one last season. The fact that, it was touted a flop per se, and all of a sudden, goes to a PSG's team, it becomes very important. Like I said, he had the stats, he had the numbers, but he had a combination of everything. He had the compelling story, he had the numbers, and he had the trophies, and he had the stats. So yeah.
So what you are saying now is perhaps this season, Olise and Bayern, let's assume they go on to win Champions League. Olise and Kane have the numbers, and then Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, they win the league in La Liga, and then Spain go on to win the World Cup. What do you think will then happen with all the things you've said now? What will be your prediction?
Okay.
I want you to use that as the analogy.
First of all, Spain will not win the World Cup. Let me tell you that. Poor play, right? So it's a bold, and I'm telling you, poor play. Spain will not win the World Cup. There's going to be a compelling story, and like I said, I feel Harry Kane will win the Ballon d'Or this year. Do you know why?
Because England will win the World Cup.
It might finally come home. I feel it might finally come home this year. And when it does that, there's a compelling story. There's a start.
It might come on because Tuchel is the coach.
No, so I feel England have a lot of England right now. So I've always said Tuchel is a competition coach. He knows how to. He's a cup coach. Tuchel is a cup coach. Like I said, I think the World Cup either goes to Brazil, it goes to England.
I was about to tell you now that Ancelotti also a cup coach.
Because they have two people that can blend these caliber of players and get the best out of them. So I feel, like I said, this. But using your narrative, if Bayern Munich with the numbers, and so I don't even think Barcelona will have the trophies, right? Because I think the Copa del Rey, they're out of it. They'll most likely only just win the La Liga. I don't see them winning the Champions League. That trophy bit already out of it. So if they do have that and Spain do win the World Cup, I feel, yes, Yamal will get that bit because Yamal still has a compelling story. An 18-year-old winning it will take someone with greater PR, because I think that's what happened in 2018 with I think yes, it was 2018 now,
Modric.
why Mbappe didn't win it that year, because it took someone that had a lot of the PR and went as far as the World Cup.
Is it on a Modric
Because
one?
normally they'll have just yes, the one that Modric won now, because
2018.
that year could have easily been an Mbappe year, because the
Modric,
storyline, he's
Modric
young.
won for the
Yes, now
Champions
Modric
League.
won.
He got the golden
Yes, now
ball.
Modric. Yes, now he won the golden ball a lot of those bits. So I
So it
feel
was more
with
of League, Champions League, and the Maggi.
That 2018 is the reason why the criteria for the Ballon d'Or was changed in 2022.
22. True.
It influenced the change, and they said that legacy and career achievement is no longer part of the criteria for winning the Ballon d'Or.
For that bit.
2018 was responsible for that. And that thing changed just before the 20, because they were expecting the 2022 World Cup coming up, and they didn't want someone who performed in the World Cup to lose to somebody who would have won based on legacy.
But he still gave Messi the World Cup in 2023.
Exactly. So like I said, this is a very
subjective to the journalists. It's very subjective to the voters.
Yeah, and very subjective.
This is the point where I have to give special shout out to our own dear Bobby Hendrick. My God. What a player.
Final player. What a player. I've never said it before. I'm a huge fan. So.
Oh, God. I don't know, but I think I just hope, he finds in his career, he continues to find coaches that actually believe in him and continue to invest in him.
Fonseca actually believed in that guy. I don't know what Fonseca told him, but that at first I was speaking to Izzy and Abba before he joined the board. Hendrick is never playing like that. At Palmeiras, it was a 9. Hendrick at Lyon is a right winger, and it's just the shot power, the acceleration, the pace, the dribble.
When you think about that shot power, who do you remember?
Adriano.
R9.
What?
Me, I tell you, feel he has. I think it's the last. We have not seen this type of Brazilian in a long time. It's like the Romario, that era of Brazilian players. So
it's good to the World Cup for sure.
And that's why it's difficult. And that's why it's difficult for, I feel, because a lot of those kind of players are no longer in the game, right? Yeah. So it's difficult for coaches now to adapt to, seeing this kind of player. Harry Hendrick can put in that era. My goodness. Like, he's so special.
To Italian coaches. I think Italian coaches still play with a certain level of the old era philosophy in their game.
True.
They still have this
Ojo, imagine Hendrick. Imagine Hendrick with Spalletti.
In Juventus.
Do you know, I actually thought of it that in case maybe Madrid is considering selling the guy, with all those their buyback clause, like they did with Morata, man, I wouldn't mind the guy at all. The only thing is that the way Spalletti sets up, he prefers to use a striker that can bring other people into play. That is bounce passing style. He likes a striker that can do that and can still finish well. Now, on the right wing, where Bobby can come in, we already have Conceição. We already have Zegrova. And again, I don't want us to give up any of those two guys for anything. I just believe that if we get a good striker...
Would you really like this Zegrova guy, Sha?
Oh, Zegrova is good.
Zegrova is a talent to behold. It's just injuries that has mad the guy. Well, anyway, that's just side talk. And that brings us to you, Mr. Abba. Mm-hmm. That brings us to you, Mr. Abba. Now, there's another major factor that we've been talking about, and that's the World Cup, right? History over the years has shown us something. In World Cup years, even when Ballon d'Or isn't, we don't want to say is majorly tied around. That's what they want us to believe, that it's not majorly tied around the World Cup. In World Cup years, we found out that it's not only about club football. In fact, what happens in the World Cup can overshadow what you've been doing 10 months earlier, for the last 10 months. Mm-hmm. All this talk of, Arsenal this, Arsenal that, what Bobby is doing, Bayern Munich, someone can just decide to turn up in the World Cup, and that would change the whole narrative. And that will be just over 7 matches. My first question is this fair, Mr. Abba? That, everything would have happened all year round. And over 7 matches, you get the chance to prove yourself so much that you're now in the Ballon d'Or conversation. And also, I want you to touch on Kane. If Kane scores 50 goals this season for Bayern Munich, and let's say another player in England, let's say England even go on to win the World Cup, but another player was the shining star, clear shining star, who then deserves the World Cup?
To your first question, it's not fair. I do not think it's fair, but we must understand that we are in the era where the height of short attention span and short memory is at play. People only remember what recently happens the most.
Recency bias.
Yeah, and that we're at the height of it than ever were in our history generally. So we are talking about this eternal conflict of the Ballon d'Or between the grinder versus the moment. That is the player who is a grinder who has done it for 10, 11 months versus the moment guy who comes in and hits that moment over a 1 month period with 7 games, and then everybody gives that guy global recognition. It's not fair in any regards, and I think it's something that journalists who make these votes should take into consideration. The truth is that if Harry Kane were to finish a season with 40 goals, 50 goals, let's say 50 goals at Bayern Munich, he would still need to at least be in the final of the World Cup to have a shot at winning the Ballon d'Or, despite those fantastic numbers, which would easily be probably one of the greatest sustained individual output. We have seen that up till March right now. And he's showing that he's with a shot of winning the Golden Boot. He's going to win the Golden Boot in Germany. He has a shot of winning it in Europe. That's in the Champions League. And, all of that is in his favor. He's currently also scoring goals for England. So, but if a player like Lamine Yamal or Kylian Mbappe scores 4, 5, 6 goals and leads their country to the trophy in July, the narrative changes, right? So it's because they are not just winning a tournament. Somehow they are not just winning like a competition. They are winning the competition. They are winning the tournament, like the mainest football event in the whole universe.
In the world.
So in the world, like the entire universe, just think about it, the biggest showpiece in the world. And that alone is massive bias in anyone's eyes. So consistency goes out of the window. Harry Kane's So Harry Kane's consistency would immediately go out of the window. Some of us, even on the panel right now, would see some wonderful goals from Kylian Mbappe, and we might even not remember this conversation as such.
We will say Mbappe.
Boy. Yeah, this person deserves it. He deserves it, and that's what Kane has to put up with. That's what a player like Michael Olise has to put up with. That's what so many players have to put up with. So,
but you can see even in the last World Cup, that Mbappe's performance in the final alone showed a lot of narratives that year.
Just for you to put this into perspective, the 3 main criteria for voting in the Ballon d'Or, the primary criterion is individual performance. And individual performance is breaking into 3 things under that criteria: statistical dominance, decisive character, that is the ability to perform in clutch moments, to make decisive impact for your team, semifinals and all the rest, then the overall impact you have in a game. Now, when you look at what it says, this actually should point you towards consistency over a long period of time. But unfortunately, to be applied to consistency over just 1 month at the World Cup, right? So, then the second criteria is a collective performance and an achievement.
Just to add to what Abba is saying, that, so I'll use the 2022 as a case study. So remember, Haaland won the Champions League, won Premier League, won all of those bits, even scored, you see the 50 goals Ojo is talking about? Haaland scored 55 goals in that calendar.
You can imagine.
But guess who won it? It's the World Cup. So in the World Cup, the World Cup supersedes every other thing.
Yeah, and people said Haaland didn't even go for the World Cup. If he was that good, why weren't Norway at the World Cup? You see the issue. So back to what I was saying, the second criteria is collective performance and achievement. Trophies that have been won. The criteria says trophies. That is success in major competitions like the Champions League, the domestic league, and the international tournament. So most times, the World Cup would bring you the Champions League and the domestic league. And then what role did the player play to that success? Most times people wouldn't even look at it. Then let's talk about the third one. The third one talks about class and fair play. And the 2 points under class and fair play are things like sportsmanship and public image. Harry Kane most undoubtedly bagged this already.
Yes.
You cannot put
one of the model footballers in that category.
Once you play the World Cup, nobody remembers this category. People throw this category away. It just goes into the bin and it's gone. And then this is just for anybody who is listening. The voting system, we have 100 journalists from the top 100 teams, national teams in the world that will vote. The first place, all the people who get first place for each vote get 15 points. Second place, 12 points. Third place, 10 points. The lower rankings gets from 8 to like 1 point all the way down out of the 30-man list that will be released. Now, if there's a tie between the first and second place, then whoever got the most first place votes
Then
will become the winner. So, but the reason why I read out this criteria is to undermine just how little influence it has on the voters during a World Cup.
Because, yeah, from what you've said, in the end, it's just still going to be subjective. It's going to be down to people's opinions. The only thing is we are
Opinions.
hoping that, if you've swayed so many minds, and that's my own, grouse with this system of Ballon d'Or. My own grouse is you can have a fantastic season, and one tournament will rewrite.
We'll take you out of even the top 10, the top 5. We're not talking about even the winners. It will take you out of the top 5, top 10.
Or your club will decide that you are not
this
the
is a player they want to
marketable
push.
image. Yeah, you are not the person they want to push. Look at Rafinha last season with all the numbers and everything. But they decided to push Yamal. And see what happened in the
There are some
ranking.
diehard Barcelona fans who will not agree with you.
I wish them the best.
Yeah, so it happens. Real Madrid do that as well. That's where PR comes in. PR is consistently reminding people that he has done this, he has done this, he has done this.
The PR war on themselves, and they will have good teams, like their agents. And look at what Ronaldo is doing with his massive PR team. I just wish they could take, because in the end, history will only remember winners. Did you win the Ballon d'Or? That's what history will. I can't remember. I know that in the past, Lampard had been in the Ballon d'Or conversation. I know that Torres was even second placed or something at some point. I think Osimhen was in top 10 or so at some point too. But 20, 30 years from now, it's actually the winners that one will want to remember. Nobody remembers if you were in top 10 or. But anyway, and that brings us to, that makes it a wrap for us. And it's because football constantly creates narratives, and that's why we are talking about all of this. Sometimes it's about leagues, sometimes it's about players. Sometimes we wonder, the Premier League often sits at the center of the football universe. But on European nights, there is a way that these narratives change. And when it comes to awards like Ballon d'Ors, the debates between the numbers in the leagues and the storytelling that never truly disappears, from performances from European nights, performances from World Cup tournaments. Again, statistics has a way of also showing us the truth, the true numbers behind all these stories, because it can tell us who has been productive despite the change in narrative, or who hasn't. And football history is often written around moments, around winners, Champions League nights, World Cup performances, defining matches, goals. As I'm saying this, I'm remembering players like Drogba, Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo de Lima.
The 2010 World Cup.
My goodness. And that's what makes the sport so fascinating, because the numbers may start the conversation, but the biggest moments and the narratives often decide how the story ends. Well, we'll hope you join us on our next episode of The Match Query. Thank you.